This episode is proudly supported by ArtsPay. As a hospitality owner, you know that when it comes to business, the right tools are everything, especially when it comes to payments. ArtsPay, based in Australia, is a payment solution built on a unique model. They give 50% of their profits back to the arts community. They provide world-class point-of-sale payments and support that make your operations run smoothly. But with every transaction, a portion of the fees helps build a permanent funding source for Australia's artists and cultural institutions. What's best is it costs less too. The result is a powerful way for your business to grow and become a force for good. You're not just taking payments, you're directly supporting the vibrant culture that makes our communities unique. ArtsPay believes that business should add up for everyone. For more information, go to artspay.com. ArtsPay. It pays to make the change.
I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Palawa people. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
I think ultimately it's great to make something or craft something that people really like and actually want to spend their money and buy and just enjoy drinking it. So that's our ultimate target, I guess.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Ed Carr is a bit of an enigma. There is no one quite like him. Chief winemaker at the House of Arras, Ed has quite literally put the buzz into the Australian sparkling wine scene. A pioneer of fine wine, I am so thrilled to have Ed join me today. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well. It's been quite some time since we sat down at Key Restaurant and had a look through some of your beautiful wines. But in that many years since then, I have been drinking your wines and there's not been a moment that I haven't enjoyed them. How are you on this fine Monday morning?
Oh, good. Yes, just back from a promotional trip into the northern beaches of Sydney. So, trying to get my mind focused again back on the job.
Well, I apologise for the crappy weather that we did have while you're up here. I'm sure it was raining and miserable. It does shine. The sun does come out occasionally, just not at this time of the year.
Yeah. Our plans for Sunday were a bit damp.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I suppose, we can at least drink good wine even when we're indoors. I would love to know a little bit about how you got started in this career. You have done wonderful things for Australian wine, but it all had to start somewhere. Tell me a bit about where you grew up and how you found wine in your life.
Yeah, it was really like an unplanned journey, I guess. I was a child of 10-pound pom of a family that came over from the UK in 1964, just purely on this land of opportunity sort of approach. My parents were basically non-drinkers, not total teetotalers, but but classically English. My father would have a glass of port, and my mum would have a glass of white wine from a cask, and the cask would last about a month in the fridge. So they weren't sort of really into wines at all. I grew up in Elizabeth and Salisbury, which was very much that new town with a lot of English and Scots people there. And I just went to the public school system, Elizabeth Vale Primary, Elizabeth High School, and then into science at university. I did actually make a choice then between engineering, which I was very keen on, or food science and microbiology. So that's the initial step that took me further onto the wine road, but it wasn't initially there. So graduating from university, everybody that did that course ended up in some sort of food science, either food canning, processing, brewing, and winemaking was probably one of the lesser ones. I took that sort of chemistry and microbiology initially into the dairy industry. That only lasted about a year, and it wasn't very exciting at all, testing milk. But I saw a more interesting role, I thought, which again was based on chemistry and microbiology, at a winery at Ranella in South Australia, which was linked to the Seaview winery. So we're talking like 1978 here. And it was from there that over the next 5 years or so, I progressively got more and more involved in sparkling wine and winemaking in general, as the Seaview brand was a very strong, pioneering sparkling brand at that point. So
It
it's
sure
really
was.
entering from science and getting more and more involved in winemaking, being in a smaller winery. You got to experience a lot of these things. It wasn't just all compartmentalized.
I mean, when you look back at, microbiology and the sciences that you're interested in, it makes so much sense for why you're interested in sparkling. But it was always a question to me was, were you making still wines first? Did your brain just work in a different way when you tasted sparklings and thought, what's going on here? And then did you have more questions and that's why you found it more interesting?
Yeah, I think I did actually work with a broader range of wines initially. I was assistant winemaker there until about 84, where we were looking at a lot of everything from Riesling to fortified wines, sparkling as well. Also, being a microbiologist, they felt I could solve some of their secondary fermentation issues, which coming straight out of uni and, getting told this wine's not fermenting, what can we do about it? Took us a little while to fix that, but that sort of got the focus on sparkling, I guess. And I do often wonder why my palate seems particularly tuned to sparkling wine, but I don't really know the answer to that. But it is something that's grown over the years, I guess, with more experience. And I think it's really just to have that focus on this style.
Well, thank God that you do, because we would be in a very different place in Australia without you. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Norm Walker and some of the greatest things that he taught you.
Yeah, it was interesting with Norm. We were at the Romalo cellars at McGill, which was opposite the Penfolds winery there too. So there was those two classic old cellars side by side. A lot of the bottling was done there, and that's where I got to deal a lot with Norm. Norm was more focused on the secondary ferment side and the packaging. Whereas with the base wines, I was working with Pam Dunsford back at the Ranella winery. So two very experienced, very knowledgeable people, different in different fields there. But Norm was just very supportive, and he was very aware that some more science and technology had to come into the process. When you look back in the days, it was extremely rustic, let's put it that way, in terms of the methods used. So we really had to move forward with that. And Norm with the Seaview brand and also the old Romalo brand. And then on top of those came a couple of premiums. One was called Edmund Mesure, and the other one was a CB vintage wine. And both Norm and Pam were very supportive of those. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending which way you look at it, in 1986, those operations were closed and moved to the Penfolds winery at Newry. So I spent the next years at the Newry site and very much focused on those sparkling wines.
And then in 1988, you went on a cool climate tour to Tassie. What were your first thoughts when you went down to Tasmania?
I thought Tasmania was so interesting. We'd seen some of the early pioneers, with some of the early Jan swines, I guess, that were part of the Rotorua group at that stage. And Tasmania was such in a pioneering state. There were, I think in 88, I've seen a figure quoted that there was like 46 hectares under vine, which were some of the true original vineyards, like the Marilla Vineyard around Hobart and Apsley Gorge, and some of the very early Piper's River sites. So, it was quite amazing to see those. We hadn't really chosen Tasmania for Arras by that stage. That sort of didn't happen till the mid-90s, but certainly from that very early time, Tasmania was really, really attractive. I can remember bringing samples of Tasmanian Chardonnay and Pinot Noir table wine back to the Barossa winery for the guys that were traditionally making Penfolds and Kaiser Stawell wines, and seeing their eyebrows raised when they saw these very cold climate lighter styles of white and red. But I thought that was the way forward, and sparkling wine was still pretty basic within Australia at that stage, made from lesser varieties and predominantly in the warmer regions. So I thought there was a lot of opportunity for Australian sparkling to grow in quality and style, really.
That's for sure. Now, with your understanding of kind of where sparkling wines were at, was it Champagne that you looked to kind of to think about what more we could do in Australia? What were you drinking that made you realise we could do more with what we had?
Well, I think we don't mimic Champagne. We want to be entirely Tasmanian in terroir and style, but there's no doubt about it. Whenever you talk about sparkling wine, Champagne always comes into the mix of the discussion, and I think we wanted to produce our own style, but it was very obvious that we had to move to cooler climates, and there was a whole range of those, either altitude or latitude based cool climates. But we had to have the right varieties. I mean, it still amazes me that Chardonnay didn't appear within Australia till the late 70s, and Pinot Noir a little bit after that. And then they were planted in the cold climates in the 80s as well. So, in that amount of time, when you look at sparkling wine making within Australia, it's, the quality and style has grown tremendously. But yeah, it's really the right varieties in the right areas. And that's where I think the initial revolution was, moving away from the lesser varieties for sparkling to premium varieties, and then moving them into the to the colder climate sites. I sort of call that the revolution, and then since then it's been an evolution of the different brands and their house styles.
And then when the House of Arras, was kind of started, were you just given complete free range? Did you find that intimidating at all? Or was there quite a little bit of kind of work with other people at that early stage?
No, I think it was very interesting that, the world was a lot simpler back in those days. And I was then with the Hardy Wine Company. I moved from the Seaview Penfolds group in January, February 94, and the whole team was very supportive of, particularly the chief winemaking side of it, was in making the best sparkling wine that we could. So surprisingly, there wasn't a lot of in-depth study done first. That we just felt that we had to make wines from many different cold climate regions, and then assess where we could go from there. So we didn't get any Tasmanian fruit until 1995 harvest. So hence it's our 30th anniversary year now. But the minute we sort of made wine out of Tasmanian fruit, we suddenly realised we'd not stumbled across, but found something that was very special for the style that we wanted to make. So we looked at, the high altitude regions, found the wines a different style, but really it was just that feeling of those first Tasmanian wines that really, inspired us to take it forward. And by 1998, we'd actually moved what was then not known as Arras. It didn't have a name, but the wine became entirely Tasmanian. And in 1999, the name Arras, from intricate tapestry meanings, was born and released just before the millennium.
That must have been such a good moment. I'd love to know, I've had some of your wines with some beautiful bottle age, and the freshness is remarkable. I always, if I have a blind wine of yours, I'm always like, oh my God, it's probably 10 years older than what I think. But do you think that perhaps with some of our new generations, the fact that we don't sell a wine, as a practice in most households as much anymore, do you think the younger generations are losing a palate for what wine looks like and tastes like as it ages?
Well, I guess, I can see where we're coming from. I think with sparkling wine, particularly with the Arras brand, I guess to us what makes it unique is the age of the wine at the time of release. I think as a brand, it's much more advanced in terms of maturation than many others. And when you look at 40% of Tasmanian fruit being sparkling, I think, and there's a lot of good styles in there, the Arras brand still has head and shoulders on that age. I think that's very special for us, but that's mainly tirage age, that can only be done by the producer. So we think that, we release our different tiers of wine at certain ages that suits their price point and hopefully the market. So they already had a lot of age at the time of release, but we do have a lot of faith in cork maturation after disgorgement as well. So even though we keep them 6 months minimum after disgorgement for release, we really would like people to keep them longer. I think they look great after 2 or 3 years more, but as a commercial entity, we do have to sell them at some point. So we think that 6 months minimum is great, and then it's really up to the market. But I think, to get back to your question, I think people like sparkling wines with character, and that is predominantly coming from what we're doing with tirage age and then that shortened cork age. But certainly, if people want to keep them longer, we quite happy to recommend that as a further extension of the style.
I totally agree that there is just something about, there's lots of things about sparkling wines, like you said, with all this time on lees, but they move into a different realm of a wine experience, I think, and probably some of the most remarkable wine experiences I've had have been with sparkling wines. You have had such a wonderful career, and there's been plenty of people that have come and worked with you that have gone on to make fantastic sparkling wines around the country. Is mentoring, new generations and that passing down of knowledge important to you?
Oh, yes, it certainly is. I mean, we have a look at where this brand goes for the future. And I'm very much the believer that winemakers and also the viticulturists really have to understand how the whole matrix of the wine intake that we have comes together for the final blends. And I think it's a minimum of 3 or 4 years with the brand to understand how these wines evolve really from the vineyard right the way through to the final glass. So each year is a harvest, is winemaking, is blending, right the way through to making up the expedition liqueurs and disgorgement. So I think to have an in-depth knowledge of that, to me, that's you have to see 3 or 4 cycles of that happening to sort of fully understand that total picture. And it's two-way traffic. I mean, I've really have worked and still do work with some brilliant winemakers, and there's no rights or wrongs in the tasting room. It's generally a democracy in the decision, and sometimes, quite often we're just working together as a team, and people see different things, and it's quite it is very supportive and quite inspiring to have other people in the room with such brilliant palates that often lead us down that right track to the nth degree.
And in the time that you've been with the House of Arras, what have been some of the biggest kind of winemaking changes? Has there been many? I mean, like you said, you're always thinking outside the box of how things can be done differently. Has there been some significant changes that you've learnt from doing something different that you've now carry on?
Yeah, I think it starts with the viticulture. We really do now mostly understand, where all the sub-regions, how they fit into that mix of wines that we make. We're certainly not a single vineyard or a single sub-region. We like to source our fruit from all of the recognised Tasmanian regions. So it's been learning what varieties work well in each of those sites and how they then fit into our wine blending program. In terms of winemaking, we haven't changed a lot. We've always been quite traditional. Our premium wines are all hand-picked fruit and traditional method and 100% malolactic fermentation. One big change we did make was from 07 and 08, we started to introduce oak into the blends, and I think that was a significant change for us. Seems like ancient history now, but the inclusion of oak and quite young oak into the mix has given us a different structural texture and character that we think is actually assisting in that aging and keeping those wines bright and fresh. I really like the point that you made about how complex the wines can be, but they still have that vibrancy and freshness. That's entirely what we're looking for. And I think the final point for us is really just tailoring the expedition liqueur so that we get the dosage right. And I think over the years, our winemaking has shown some increased finesse and focus, particularly on dosage level, and all our wine styles are well below the Brut level. We haven't done zero dosage yet, but we've got very close to it with some of our older wines, and I think we're getting a lovely balance in these wines at really low sugar levels, which to me is pretty intriguing because then you get to see all the characters of the wine. There's no masking by any sweetness.
I couldn't agree more. I'm always blown away by, if I'm to stab in the dark and try and guess what the dosage would be, I'm always blown away that it's lower than I expected, but with so much flavor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do they do that? I think it's absolutely incredible. And the fact that you haven't done a zero dosage, it says so much about you, I think, because, they have been quite trendy of late to do the kind of brute natures and almost zero dosage for zero dosage sake, almost, to see what it will be. And I love that you've pushed it right to the boundaries, but never kind of thought, no, that can be, I just need that little bit to really showcase what it is. And it is sometimes those, half percentages that make a difference, don't they?
Oh, it absolutely is. When we do some of these trials, we're just working with the wine on the bench and adding different amounts of sugar into tiny little amounts. And then you look at it and you think, no, that just definitely needs to be at that level. We've had conversations with wine shows in the UK, and even though we are technically below the sugar level of a zero dosage wine specification, we have actually added sugar to them, so we can't be called a zero dosage wine. But sometimes it's less than half a gram per litre of sugar, which is absolutely minuscule.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. I mean, you have had so many wonderful, successful vintages. You have this legacy of wines from your time to look back on. But when it's at the end of the day, what do you love most about your job?
I actually love the creation part of it, and I can't put a finger on which part I liked even the best. Every vintage has its challenges. We've just finished the wine blendings for this year, and that's always very exciting, just to put the new base wines down. And then, somewhere between 4 and 15 years, those wines are going to come back to us, and we'll be working on the expedition liqueurs for those. Every year there's always that role of different processes that we're doing. But I think ultimately it's great to make something or craft something that people really like and actually want to spend their money and buy. And just enjoy drinking it. So that's our ultimate target, I guess, to make wines that consumers really want to enjoy. Much further down the track from the days that we actually had them as grapes.
Mm. Well, there is nothing quite like sparkling wine for marking occasions, and I could tell you 1,000 stories of people that have spoken to me about Arras and where it featured throughout their lives, just simply from a restaurant floor point of view. We've had it on by the glass, and someone will say, oh my gosh, we drank that at our wedding and we drank that at this moment. And they're not forgotten because they're often, served alongside something quite remarkable in someone's life, which is nice to know that you're on a table in a room at such a joyous occasion, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely brilliant. I think you put it far, far better than I did. But it is really that, just to have someone choose that wine instead, just to enjoy the special moments in their life, be it, anything from just finishing work on a Friday night to, some of the most momentous occasions. To have your wines chosen is just absolutely humbling, but brilliant, really.
I don't think I would ever put a sparkling wine on by the glass if I didn't think the wine was sensational flat, because that's when I'd often drink it. And I can tell you, Arras Stone Cold Flat is a sensational fine wine of the world.
I actually think that's a good way to actually judge the sparkling wine as well, to actually judge it while it's cold and fizzy and then come back to it when it's a little bit warmer and flat. You can see a lot of different characters and structures.
Absolutely. I totally
think that
agree.
is that's one of the methods that I use to look at wines over time.
Tell me now, when you started out in the industry and you looked at where sparkling was at, now when you look around at Australia and what's being produced, are you happy with the progress that sparkling wine has made in the country?
Oh, totally happy with the way it's evolved. I think, really in the last 30 years, which is a very short time in in the wine industry, Aussie sparkling and Tasmanian sparkling as well as a subset has taken great brands forward. Again, the right varieties in the right regions. I think there's a maturity now there with the producers each having their own house styles, so the consumer's got quite a few choices in terms of style, but still the same quality, I guess. But which house style do you prefer? And it takes time we've gone down the track of favouring much more mature and aged style. And this year we're releasing like an 06 vintage wine. So it's taken us, 30 years to release a 20-year-old wine. But it is truly something that's amazed us about Tasmania and the style that we're making, how well these wines do age. And that's just been a constant evolution as part of this style, is to push the boundaries on age, and we certainly haven't found the boundary as yet. These wines just keep that lovely brightness that's always so intriguing with the style.
Incredible. Well, your Friday knockoff drink must be something pretty special no matter what it is. I would love to know a little bit about what your palate is like and what makes you happy. So, Ed, if you could only drink 3 drinks for the rest of your life, what would they be and why?
Well, certainly I'm not obliged to say sparkling wine, but I do love sparkling wine, obviously. So I think sparkling wines from around the globe, we're seeing some excellent other cold climate styles from other countries. And ultimately, I'd like to see, sparkling wine purchased on quality and style and not just country of origin. So I think that's an interesting thing for the market to fully come to grips with, I guess. I can't beat a gin and tonic, can you really? I find classically the older styles of gin with a bit of cucumber in it, that floats my boat to a long way. And Negroni, when you're feeling serious and you've had, you just want to have something a little different. I do like drinks with a little bit of bitterness in them, and astringency maybe is a better word, but that sort of style, I think, just something different, basically.
Wow. What a humble guy. Look, anybody could get along with Ed Carr with those 3 drinks in mind. I think they're 3 fantastic drinks and all suit many, many occasions. But it's nice to know that you are still enthralled by sparkling wines of the world. There are so many different styles, are made from so many different grapes and in different methods. Really, sparkling wine is for all occasions. So there is the breadth for us to be drinking something different every day. Ed, what you have done for Australian wine is nothing short of remarkable. I am forever thrilled that you've had some time to chat to me, but just for the work that you have done, the tireless effort for always seeking to do something more remarkable than you already have and looking for like minute detail in everything that you do. I am forever grateful. And thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. It's always been a challenge, but always exciting making wine.
That's for sure. We'll keep on keeping on, and hopefully we get to have a cheers, whatever it may be, gin and tonic Negroni or some fizz in a glass soon sometime.
Okay, thanking you.
Cheers to you.
Yeah, bye.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram @overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.